Law enforcement and lawmakers join forces to oppose legalizing marijuana in California. A follow-up tonight to an iNews source investigation into public bathrooms that have been locked up for nearly a year.
We're out here in front of the convention center in downtown San Diego, the site of some controversial remarks by FBI Director James Comey. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. We begin with an apology from an organization of police chiefs for historic mistreatment of minorities in the United States. This apology came during a conference right here in San Diego. Just yesterday, FBI Director James Comey spoke to the convention, telling them a regrettable narrative is forming about police. We have a clip of that speech taken from the FBI's YouTube channel. There are some technical glitches in the recording.
It is a narrative that has formed in the absence of good information, in the absence of actual data, and it is this: biased police are killing black men at epidemic rates. That is the narrative. It is a narrative driven by video images of real and gut-wrenching misconduct, by images. It's a narrative given force by the awesome power of human empathy. It's a narrative driven forward by the surprise and shock of civilians seeing how fast and complicated police activity can be.
KPBS reporter Steve Walsh is standing by outside the convention center where some people are planning to protest. Steve?
Well, that's right, That is right, Ebony. We're out in front of the convention center here where the International Association of Chiefs of Police have been meeting since Saturday. Last night, FBI Director James Comey addressed the group in questioning whether or not the number of police shootings was actually on the rise. A group here is about to protest those remarks. We're going to get to them in just a minute. But first, we have the Chiefs Association, the head of the Chiefs Association, Terrence Cunningham, and the remarks he made earlier in the day.
There have been times when law enforcement officers, because of the laws enacted by federal, state, and local governments, have been the face of oppression to far too many of our fellow citizens. In the past, the laws adopted by our society have required police officers to perform many unpalatable tasks, such as ensuring legalized discrimination or even denying the basic rights of citizenship to many of our fellow Americans. While this is no longer the case, this dark side of our shared history has created a generational, almost inherited mistrust between many communities of color and the law enforcement agencies they serve them.
While in many ways his remarks had the tone of an apology, he also said he denounced that police must also acknowledge, or that people must also acknowledge that today's officers are not to blame for the injustices of the past. He also said that we must work together in an atmosphere of mutual respect. To kind of go into this a little further, I'm joined by Martha Sullivan with the Light Brigade. They're an activist group who is setting up a protest at 6 o'clock just out here in front of the convention center. Martha, if you could come over here. Sure. All right, so we've got the FBI director saying that there just isn't even enough data available to justify that there is an epidemic of shooting, especially among African Americans nationwide. What is he missing?
Well, what he's missing, for one thing, is the Washington Post reporting just 3 months ago that in its analysis, the rate of shootings is 6% higher in the first 6 months of this year over last year. And that once again, blacks are 2.5 times more likely to be shot than whites. So he apparently doesn't read the paper in Washington, D.C.
And you've got the head of the Chiefs Association saying that the Chiefs Association saying that they're to blame for, yes, past injustices, but those injustices are in the past. What is he missing?
Well, if he means the past as of, like, this weekend, I guess that's sort of accurate. But that's not enough. It's clearly not enough. It's obvious by the Washington Post reporting. and by just watching the news that it's not in the past. It's current. And it's certainly a start for the head of the International Association of Chiefs of Police to apologize for past racial bias and racial abuse. But the next step has got to be owning what's happening now and doing something about it.
And so, just real briefly, you have an audience of chiefs of police from around the country and around the world. What is it that you want them to hear?
I think we want to hear that very message, that you need to stop the war on people, really. I mean, our police departments have become militarized. When we're exercising our First Amendment rights, they come out in military gear, like they're storming, in a city that they're invading.
All right, well, that's Martha Sullivan. Their protest begins at 6 o'clock outside the convention center here. The Association of Chiefs of Police, they're holding an open session tomorrow on large-scale police operations with people from Belgium, San Bernardino, Orlando, and others. All right, reporting live from the San Diego Convention Center, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Thank you, Steve. One incident in the narrative Comey mentioned was last month police shooting of an unarmed black man in El Cajon. The death of Alfred Alongo sparked a series of protests at the shooting site. There have also been arrests after police declared some of the gatherings to be unlawful assemblies. Now, the San Diego chapter of the NAACP is suing the city of El Cajon and the county of San Diego, among others. The suit says breaking up the demonstrations was a violation of free speech. The NAACP says the protests have been peaceful and should not have been shut down. Measure G on San Diego's November ballot would make small changes to the city's Citizens Review Board on police practices. That board was on the agenda of the City Council today. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen joins us with more. Andrew, what exactly would Measure G do?
Hi, Ebony. Well, Measure G would provide some very limited reforms to the Citizens Review Board. First of all, it would change its name to the Community Board on Review Board on Police Practices. It would also require all of the officer-involved shootings in the city and in-custody deaths to be reviewed by the board. That is current policy, but this would really set it in stone. And most importantly, perhaps, it would give authority to for making future and more substantial reforms of the review board to the mayor and the city council. So this is really just the start of the discussion, Measure G.
So why reform the board? What started this discussion in the first place?
Well, there is a perception among many that the board is biased in favor of the police. It basically just rubber stamps some of the internal affairs investigations that go on. And that was that sort of perception of pro-bias on the board was one of the findings in a county grand jury report that was issued in May, and the city council today actually had to respond to that county grand jury report. One of the recommendations in the report was in an effort to increase diversity of the board members, you should perhaps consider offering some financial compensation for board members. They have to make a lot of trips to City Hall, to the police department to review all of these incidents and complaints against police officers, and that can actually create some substantial burden on the board members, and perhaps offering them some compensation might encourage more low-income or minority people to actually join up on the board. The other one is another important recommendation was you should perhaps consider offering outside legal counsel. There is a perception among a lot of people that the CRB is sort of in cahoots with the police department because they're advised by the same attorney's office, the city attorney's office, that represents the police department. So those are both issues that the city council agreed to analyze further in the next 6 months, and if Measure G does pass, I think you can expect that the new city council after these elections will be discussing some of those ideas to create more independence and strength with the Citizens Review Board on police practices.
Very interesting. Thanks so much, Andrew.
Thank you.
San Diego Congressman Darrell Issa and Scott Peters don't have much in common beyond being the incumbents in San Diego County's only seriously contested congressional races. Issa is a Republican. Peters is a Democrat. Issa has been in office since 2000. Peters is a relative newcomer. I spoke with KPBS partner iNews source reporter Joe Uriarty about another difference, how often they toe their party's line. Joe, you reviewed data and saw how often Congressman Scott Peters and Congressman Darrell Issa voted against their party. Starting with Peters, what did you find?
Right, so Scott Peters voted against the majority of his fellow House Democrats a little more than 12% of the time in the current Congress, which started last January. That might not seem like much, but it's actually more than twice the average for House Democrats, and it's more frequently than all but 29 other members of the House.
So why does he tend to go the other way?
Well, it sort of depends who you asked. I spoke with Congressman Peters, and he said, I'm really just voting my conscience. I'm an independent thinker. That's what I told people when I first ran for the seat. I vote in the best interest of my country and of my district. I also spoke with Carl Luna, professor of politics, San Diego Mesa College, and he said, sure, but also it doesn't hurt that it's a real moderate district. It's pretty much evenly split, Republican, Democrat, Independent. So having a moderate, kind of independent-minded voting record is a good thing to run on.
And what about Congressman Issa?
So it's a different situation with Darrell Issa. He voted against his party only about less than 6% of the time. And that's below the average for House Republicans, and 195 other members of the House actually have a voting record that's more against their party. And the reason that might be is, unlike Peters, he has a very conservative district. Having like a straight line kind of party voting record is something that could play well with conservative voters back home, and it has worked for him for a while. He was first elected in 2000 and has been comfortably reelected every 2 years since then, up until this year.
And what's happening now?
So now it's a little different. Back in the June primary, he only got 51% of the vote against a relatively unknown Democrat who took 46%. I asked Carl Luna, the political science professor, what changed, and he said, well, kind of very quietly, the district became more diverse, less conservative, and also Darrell Issa was a real strong Trump backer for many months now, maybe turned off a lot of independent-minded voters, and so now that same reliably conservative voting record that was really good for him for a long time, it doesn't look so good to people back home in his district.
And did you reach out to Congressman Issa? What did he have to say about his own voting record?
Well, we reached out a couple times to his campaign, but they didn't get back to us, which is really too bad, because it would have been nice to know exactly, why it is he had such a conservative, consistent voting record, and whether he thinks that maybe now that he's in what a lot of people think is the fight of his political life, that maybe that could hurt him.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Hey, no problem.
No on Prop 64, the message today from San Diego law enforcement and lawmakers. They united against the measure to legalize recreational marijuana. Opponents held signs warning of the dangers of pot, such as edibles that resemble candy getting into the hands of adolescents and deaths caused by impaired drivers. Speakers, including County Supervisor Bill Horn, cited an increase in crime in Denver, Colorado as an example of why legalizing marijuana is wrong for California.
This is a plague, and to legalize marijuana, it's illegal for a reason, and it should stay that way. And for those of you who are listening to this and haven't voted yet, we ask for your no vote on Proposition 64. There's no positives that come out of this.
Opponents argue Prop 64 puts profits before safety. With more on what Prop 64 will do, here's KCET's Val Zavala.
Prop 64 in 60 seconds, so put down the brownie and listen up. Prop 64 would legalize marijuana and hemp. Pot is already legal for medicinal use. This would make recreational use legal. Adults 21 or older could have up to an ounce of pot and grow up to 6 plants. You could not smoke in public or drive high, and it's off limits to minors. Commercial pot growers would be licensed, and the packaging, labeling, and marketing of cannabis would be regulated. So what's the fiscal impact? Well, there would be a 15% sales tax on pot, and growers would be taxed too. This would generate an estimated $1 billion annually. Supporters say it's time we allow the responsible use of pot by adults, and the current system is wasteful, racially biased, and supports drug cartels. Opponents, many from law enforcement, say pot is really potent these days and leads to more dangerous drugs. They say legalizing it won't stop the black market, and they're concerned about people driving while high. So to sum up, a yes vote would make recreational marijuana legal for adults in California. A no vote would keep things the way they are now.
There's just 1 week left to register to vote for the November 8th election. You can do it online at registertovote.ca.gov, or you can pick up a registration form at places like the DMV, the post office, or the public library. You need to register if you've changed your address or if you want to change your political party. And if you need help getting information on the many measures on the ballot, we've got it for you in the KPBS Voter Guide. It's an interactive website that will let you see what's on your ballot, and it will link to our coverage of the issues. You can find it at kpbs.org/voter guide. The Navy man involved in a fatal crash in Cajon Park is under arrest for allegedly being drunk when his truck launched off the Coronado Bridge. California Highway Patrol says 24-year-old Anthony Zapolio fell 60 feet and landed in the crowded park below, killing 4 people and injuring 8 others. Mourners and well-wishers have created a growing memorial of flowers and other tributes to the victims. Zapolio remains hospitalized with serious injuries. He's expected to face charges of felony DUI and vehicular manslaughter when he is released. Public restrooms at a park in East Village have been closed for almost a year because of safety concerns related to the area's growing homeless population. But a city spokesperson says they will soon be reopened. iNews Source reporter Megan Wood has more.
City spokeswoman Katie Keach says the developer of Faultline Park, Pinnacle Bayside Development, recently notified the city that the public will soon be able to use the restrooms at the park. As part of the agreement negotiated by Civic San Diego, Pinnacle Bayside was given $1.6 million from the city for the maintenance of the park and restrooms. But the restrooms have remained closed since November. According to Keach, the city found that developers' performance did not meet the required standards when it came to maintaining the park and restrooms. The restrooms are expected to reopen in the coming weeks, but Keach says the city is still determining the best action plan to keep them open during the park hours while still being safe. For KPBS, I'm iNews Source reporter Megan Wood.
The city of San Diego earned a perfect score in a new report on government attention to LGBT issues. The report comes from the Human Rights Campaign. Oceanside, Escondido, and Chula Vista are also in the report. The researchers looked at many different issues, including non-discrimination laws, transgender benefits, and LGBT representation in city government. Tomorrow, the San Diego City Council will consider a long-term agreement with Civic San Diego. That's the city-owned nonprofit that decides what can be built where downtown. And in parts of southeastern San Diego, KPBS reporter Taryn Minto tells us about the proposed agreement and why some San Diegans aren't happy about it.
The corner of 6th Avenue and C Street in downtown San Diego is slated to become a cyclist dream.
Take out one of these lanes and then put up protection, put up bollards.
Andy Hanshaw of the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition says protected bike lanes and other modifications are approved for the area as part of the Downtown Mobility Plan. He says it's an important step to address downtown's projected population boom.
It's really important for cities to have a thriving, smartly grown downtown.
The project comes from Civic San Diego, the city-owned nonprofit corporation that oversees permitting and planning in downtown and economic development in southeastern San Diego. The City Council will decide Tuesday whether to cement its relationship with the agency by approving a long-term agreement.
Supporters say the long-term agreement will enhance transparency and accountability for an agency that manages public land. Opponents say Civic San Diego often leaves out the community when it comes to important decisions about the future of their neighborhoods.
One person on board is Hanshaw, who says the mobility project is an important step that might not have happened without Civic.
We passed a precedent-setting climate action plan. This is a key component to reaching the goals of that climate action plan, in my opinion.
At Hilltop Drive in Euclid Avenue in Encanto, a project approved by Civic and the City Council isn't so well received.
Almost 9 acres of city land is part of the deal.
That's Kira Green, Deputy Director of the nonprofit Center on Policy Initiatives, which focuses on social and economic justice. She said not all community members think the proposed project, that includes apartments, homes, and a brew pub, is right for the lower-income neighborhood. Some residents say they had little opportunity to tell Civic that. This makes Green worried.
So what we want to avoid is using public money to make a place nicer, but make it so nice that people who are from San Diego can't afford to live there and can't afford to raise their children there.
Green claims her organization and other groups also had little input on the new agreement and sent a letter to the city council expressing their concerns. The issue was raised before Civic's board at a recent meeting, and members pointed out the public is welcome to comment on non-agenda items at any of their meetings. Civic also occasionally holds meetings in the communities they serve.
Officials say the new long-term agreement will actually increase community involvement because it requires Civic to submit an annual work plan that outlines its upcoming and ongoing activities. Civic San Diego President Reese Jarrett says the agreement also includes rules about how Civic can negotiate taxpayer dollars for a project.
It also defines where there are public funds invested in projects that Civic is overseeing, that certain community benefits should be derived from that public fund investment.
Those benefits, which include affordable housing requirements, hiring local businesses, and adhering to the city's living wage ordinance, are only mandated when the subsidy is $100,000 or more from the city's general fund. A city spokesman said that's a reasonable amount, but Green of the Center on Policy Initiatives says this looks like a loophole. The San Diego City Council will discuss the new agreement and its community benefits policy on Tuesday. It must receive at least 6 votes to pass. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
Planned Parenthood is celebrating its 100th anniversary today. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg finds the organization has strong local ties.
Planned Parenthood began in 1916 as a single clinic in Brooklyn. Today it has more than 650 health centers nationwide. The organization's Pacific Southwest chapter has 17 health centers in San Diego, Riverside, and Imperial counties. Chapter Vice President Sita Walsh says it's important to remember how much things have changed.
When Planned Parenthood was first founded, people were jailed for opening birth control clinics. It was considered pornography. So the laws had to change for people to understand that it really is health care.
Planned Parenthood clinics provide birth control, abortions, and testing for sexually transmitted diseases. About 15% of their patients are men. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
This week in San Diego, expect high temps with a breeze. Regina Miller tells us which areas are heating up.
Well, as we take a look at your satellite and radar imagery across California, you can see across Northern California we've had some showers around Redding. We had a couple of bouts of some steadier rainfall there right along the coast to the north of Redding, and then to the west of Reno we're seeing a couple of showers still lingering. We even saw a couple of spots around Los Angeles, very spotty though, and we're seeing a little bit of spotty activity showing up there to the north of Camp Pendleton, a lot of that not reaching the ground. In Borrego Springs down to Ramona and Alpine, things looking very quiet. Tonight, partly cloudy skies with a temperature of 62 degrees in the metro areas. And in San Diego County, we'll see an overnight low of 45 in Ramona, Poway at 53 degrees, and Alpine will be at 47 degrees, and Mount Laguna also at 47 degrees. The big story is really going to be the gusty winds, dry conditions, and low humidity, and because of that, we have a fire weather watch in effect Wednesday through Thursday. So we definitely have that wildfire risk. Now, taking a look at what we can expect along the coast, 73 degrees on Tuesday, turning sunny and nice. Check out the jump here. By Wednesday, we're at 86 degrees, 87 degrees on Thursday and Friday. Plenty of sunshine in the forecast. We're at 85 for Saturday. Then as we take a look inland, we're going to see our temperatures getting to 68 degrees with sunny skies there on Tuesday. Sunny and very windy on Wednesday with a high temperature of 71 then in the mountains on Thursday. We have plenty of sunshine. Sunshine, very nice and warm on Friday and Saturday we're at 72 degrees. The desert outlook, we're going to see our temperature at 91 degrees for Tuesday. We have abundant sunshine in the forecast. Wednesday, sunny and very warm as well. We get to 92 degrees for a daytime high. Sunny and warm on Thursday at 92. And by Saturday, we're actually going to see our temperature getting into the mid-90s, so 95 degrees, your expected high, with overnight lows dropping into the 50s most of the week. We'll see our overnight low at 62 as we go into Saturday. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next news hour, we report on the rise of the far right in Europe. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
UC San Diego professor emeritus David Anton, a poet and performance artist known for his so-called talk poems, has died. KPBS' Deb Welsh has the story.
Are there poems in the sky?
Not till I put them there. I think my sense is that poems don't exist anywhere ahead of time. They come to be largely out of kind of persistence, the feeling that I need something to help make reality come together. Usually I fail to get it to come together for more than a moment, but I do the best I can.
Anton suffered from Parkinson's disease. According to his family, he died last week after taking a fall at home. He was 84. Anton's talk poems, for which he won acclaim in the 1970s, were a hybrid of criticism, poetry, and storytelling. His best-known works are Talking at the Boundaries from 1976 and 1993's What It Means to Be Avant-Garde. He also wrote several books, including I Never Knew What Time It Was and Radical Coherency. Deb Welsh, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.